Hello, and welcome to our Your Vote Counts, a public, informational, nonpartisan program designed to get the public acquainted with the candidates vying for the 2024 general election races of Kaiser City Council, Kaiser Mayor, Marion County Sheriff, Senate District 9, House Districts 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and Congressional Districts 5 and 6. These interviews are brought to you through the production of Capital Community Media with collaboration on questions and interviewers from the American Association of University Women and League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk counties. All candidates for these races were invited, and 65% chose to participate. Candidates did not receive the questions that were prepared by the League of Women Voters beforehand. Candidates were invited to share a 2-minute opening addressing their background and qualifications for the office. They will also have a 2-minute closing to address other concerns and share their contact information. I'm Bernadine Anderson from the League of Women Voters of Marion Polk Counties, and I would like to introduce Andrea Salinas, who is running for Congressional District 6. Candidate Salinas, welcome, and we look forward to hearing your opening remarks.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Yes, you're welcome to start your 2-minute remarks. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you. And thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this candidates forum. I am the proud daughter of an immigrant who grew up in a hardworking union family. And I know that change is possible in a single generation, but only if we work for it. And I know because it happened for me. My parents always taught me and my sister that value of hard work. And if we worked hard, anything was possible. So that's what I did. Our family didn't have much money, and I worked long hours at odd jobs to pay my way through school. It took me 7 years, but I'm proud to say I finished my degree and became the first person in my family to graduate from a 4-year university. That experience got me thinking, though, how could it be this hard when I did everything right? I thought that hard work was supposed to be enough. And for every person who's ever asked themselves that question, I feel that frustration. I know working families today feel this every single day, that pain of following all the rules, yet still falling short. And that's why I'm running for reelection. I'm running to bring down the cost of living and make life better for working people. I'm running for my daughter, Amelia, and her generation. They deserve better. They deserve clean air, water, and soil. And I'm committed to delivering that better future for all Oregonians, no matter one's race, faith, ethnicity, zip code, gender identity, or sexual orientation. First, as an advocate, and later as a state legislator, I fought to bring down the cost of prescription drugs, protect our environment for the future, and pass one of the strongest reproductive freedom laws in the country. Now I'm bringing those same values and that same work ethic with me to Washington, D.C. I've made it my mission to be a policymaker, not a politician, and that's why I'm working with members of both parties to address mental health issues, to bring that down the cost of gas and groceries, tackle the fentanyl and addiction crisis, and make housing more affordable for Oregon families. I've secured over $315 million in federal grant funding for critical programs and initiatives in my district, as well as $14 million in direct funding that I fought for and successfully delivered for important local infrastructure projects. Now I'm fighting to bring even more of your tax dollars back to Oregon in next year's budget. In fact, I just requested another $23 million for projects right here at home. I've been fighting and delivering for this community over the past 2 years as a member of Congress, 5 years before that as a state legislator, and I want to continue to do the work needed to make it an even better place here in Oregon for everyone to live.
Thank you very much. And now we'll have a chance to hear some questions and allow you to share some of your views. Our first question today is, what role does the federal government play in addressing states' climate resilience?
Oh my goodness, there is a lot that the federal government can actually play in this role. We're seeing this climate crisis manifest in extreme weather across the country, and certainly here in Oregon, from icy Arctic blasts to devastating wildfires, heat domes, droughts, infestations, and so much more. And it's a threat. It's a threat to our way of life, our economy, our farmlands, our natural resources, to our kids, and to our very survival. So we need to take meaningful action to blunt its impact before it's too late. And there are things that the government has already done. The Inflation Reduction Act actually made the largest ever investment in making sure we can fight the climate crisis. It will help us cut pollution in half by 2030. And what it does is it invests in clean energy and clean energy technology. It'll set the United States on a course toward an equitable clean energy transition that leaves no jobs and should leave no Oregonian behind in the process. It'll bring more than $1 billion of investment in large-scale clean power generation and storage to Oregon between now and 2030. But I'm also continuing to work with my colleagues to address this climate issue, both on the Agriculture Committee and the Science, Space, and Technology Committee. Both of these are great jurisdictions for this work. For instance, I just worked with Republican Chairman of the Science, Space, and Technology Committee, Frank Lucas, to pass a bill out of committee that will accelerate development of advanced geothermal energy production technologies. And this can help us to provide a backup and clean alternative to fossil fuels. And it's just the type of reliable energy that we need. And then in the Ag Committee, I have opposed Republican efforts to remove climate requirements for certain conservation funding pools that go to our growers and our farmers. So so I'm really proud of the work that I've been doing, and we could be doing so much more.
You've several of your comments there addressed energy, and so you may, if you have something more you would like to add, we'd be interested in noticing if there's a policy or other program help that Oregonians can expect as we address the energy concerns. If you have anything additional that you'd like to add.
Well, yes, there are a number of pieces and policies that the federal government can help with. And one of them is something, because we know that people are facing some higher utility bills right now. And that's something I hear about constantly. And so in order to help families with this, we are trying to figure out how we diversify our energy resources. And that means moving away from fossil fuels and trying to address the climate crisis. We know that so many of these utility bills are going up right now because of the devastation. And so, for PGE, for instance, has to put up new transmission lines when trees fall and we see these Arctic blasts that hurt our transmission lines and our ability to, to get power into homes. That is going to cost us all. So the more that we continue to see climate devastation, the more we are going to see our rates increase. So we have to get our arms around the climate problem, which is what I just addressed, but we also can be doing things to help accelerate that. So there are a number of things around permitting that we are working with the Biden administration on to help get some of these projects on the ground and get that renewable energy to out to different communities faster.
Related to this, do you see a role of conservation in the planning and in the policies?
Oh, absolutely. And so this is actually part of what I was talking about when I mentioned some of the rollbacks that Republicans put in the House, what we call in the Agriculture Committee, the Farm Bill reauthorization. Conservation is a very big part of this whole package and this whole plan. And so things like putting solar panels on, the tops of nurseries so that our nursery industry can actually draw down energy for their own use in their production, as well as sell that energy back to the grid. It gives them a new revenue stream, and we are using the natural resources that we have, the sun and other things, to be able to use that. Same thing with some of the new technologies around water conservation. And again, going back to our growers, they need a lot of these programs. The federal government should be incentivizing this, though, and they can't take off what we call the requirements and the sideboards to get this work done. It has to go hand in hand. So absolutely, conservation is a huge piece and part of this.
I'm going to play off of the word you mentioned with natural resources and take a look at one of our important ones of groundwater quality and quantity. There's an impact from the Snake River dams removal, and all of these things affect us in our state in many ways, and in some parts of our state more than others. Would you please comment on this situation?
Yeah, so we know that, salmon it's iconic to Oregon and to the Pacific Northwest. And as temperatures and climate continues to ravage our natural resources, we are seeing warmer and warmer water temperatures where salmon cannot spawn in our rivers. And so and we also know that these dams are prohibiting robust pools of salmon and spawning habitat. So I am supportive of trying to figure out how we remove these dams so we can repair the species, knowing that we have fewer and fewer salmon, but we also need to make sure that the renewable resource, the hydropower, is replaced in some way. That's why I think we need to work so quickly in terms of figuring out what are these additional renewable resources to make up for some of that. Because we know that some, especially folks in my rural areas and rural communities, rely on that cheap and reliable hydropower, right? So, and we will not have that. So trying to figure that out as we start to remove these dams, I think is really important as well.
Thank you. The number of fires and the length of fire season is increasing, as is the portion of forestry budget allocated to this. How can our federal and state governments address this dilemma?
Yeah, so we have, well, when I was in the state legislature, there were a lot of things that we were doing, but a lot of it did have to do with trying to help communities repair, how to get firefighters on the ground and the equipment and resources that they needed. That is a lot of what I've been doing. I'm actually the ranking member on the forestry subcommittee on the House Agriculture Committee. And one of the pieces that I took on very early was around our civilian conservation centers. And this is where we actually train wildland firefighters to go out and do, whether it's removing fuels from the forest floor or addressing wildfires when they hit and spark and these blazes that ravage our communities. So one of the issues that we have run up against is that we train these civilian conservation center students. However, the hiring sometimes is so delayed that they end up getting trained and then leaving the workforce entirely to go find jobs because the federal government doesn't do a good enough job of hiring them quickly enough. And so there's been a glitch within the department, between the Department of Labor and the U.S. Forest Service. And so this is one of the provisions in the House Agriculture Bill, that the Farm Bill reauthorization, that I was actually able to get in there, which would remove that glitch. So it would allow the Department of Labor to work faster with the U.S. Forest Service. And so the Forest Service wouldn't necessarily have to go through the Department of Labor to get these folks hired faster. But the other piece that we really do need is the additional funding. So during COVID, President Biden essentially, I think wildland firefighters were making just under $14 an hour, which is terrible given they have to leave their families for months on end. They sleep in tents. I was just out at the Estacada fire camp, just talking with some of the folks out there who are working the wildfires in Oregon. They leave their families for months on end. They sleep in tents. They don't have the best conditions and they aren't paid well and they don't get the best benefits. We need to address all that. And that has to come from the federal government. The state government cannot bear that fiscal burden alone. And so, we have people, we're also about a third of our workforce underemployed, understaffed. We need about a third more than what we currently have. So when I was out there, I was talking to folks who came from Australia and New Zealand and Canada and California, obviously all over the United States. But what people don't realize is folks have to come from all over the world too. And so it's typical during our summertime to have folks, firefighters, essentially wildland firefighters, come up from Australia and New Zealand because it's their winter time. And we will do the same, vice versa. But it's very hard. We need more people and we need to attract that workforce with better pay and better benefits.
Thank you for that information. In your opening remarks, you addressed your interest and approach to reproductive health decisions. So, could we expand on that and say what should the government's role be in addressing a woman's right to privacy in these reproductive health situations?
Thank you for that. So, I mean, I think folks know when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, millions of American women were robbed of their fundamental freedom to make deeply personal healthcare decisions. And it was traumatizing and it has had disastrous consequences. And when I actually advocated at the state level, I helped to pass one of the strongest reproductive rights laws in the country. And so in Oregon, we have been fortunate to have our freedoms protected. But we know that the same cannot be said for so many other states. And for instance, our neighbor, Idaho, they have completely banned abortion. They, along with, I think, 14 other states. And that has created a real strain on our healthcare system, our providers, and as patients from other states come to Oregon to seek reproductive care, I think there's this idea that, oh, let's just let every state decide for itself. That's not realistic because people do travel. And so certain states are being really overburdened with additional healthcare needs and people, women in crisis. So I am continuing to fight to protect reproductive freedoms across the country. I am working to pass a federal law that would restore abortion access in all 50 states. I have also supported legislation to expand access to contraception, to make sure that we actually protect women from being punished if they have to travel to get health care. My Republican colleagues continue to put these terrible riders and provisions and even our defense authorization bills that basically prohibit female soldiers and people who work in the Defense Department from seeking reproductive health care in other states and criminalizing our men and women in uniform. So sadly, the Republican Party is in an all-out war on reproductive freedom, and it's not over and it's not ending. And we know that they are trying to do this in, death by a thousand cuts. And it's included in the Donald Trump's extreme Project 2025, and people can Google it. Just Google Project 2025, and you will see that they want to end access to abortion nationwide. But I want to do the opposite. I want to give people and those who can get pregnant their own choices about um, whether, when, and how to start or grow a family. This should not be something that people worry about. And, when you want to get pregnant, it is so precious. I went through my own miscarriage before I had my first child. I thought I was miscarrying when I actually took my only full pregnancy to term, and it is very personal. I didn't want a politician in that exam room when I was talking to my provider, and I have talked to so many other women who want the same thing. They want to be able to make those decisions for themselves, and I want to give them that ability.
Candidate Salinas, you're invited to now share your 2-minute closing comments about your goals for this office if elected, or if you have other remarks you'd like to share. If you'd also please include your contact information so the public can reach out to you.
Perfect. I will do that. Thank you. So again, I want to thank the League of Women Voters and uh, the American University Women for hosting this event. So as I mentioned, I think in some of these questions, I am working really hard to make sure that Oregon families can get ahead. We need to make sure that corporations and millionaires are paying their fair share. I want to make sure that we stop subsidizing multi-million dollar corporate bonuses and make sure that working families have what they need, and that means bringing down the cost of housing. I've worked with my colleagues to pass bipartisan tax legislation to finance the construction of affordable housing. I've called for funding more key programs that help communities develop the policies and infrastructure necessary to build more housing. We absolutely need more childcare. I'm proud to co-sponsor the Child Care for Working Families Act, which would ensure nobody pays more than 7% of their income towards childcare. We need families back to full-fledged work too, but that childcare piece needs to come with it. We also need to get our arms around groceries and food prices. And working on the Farm Bill, I intend to stabilize our food supply chain and make sure we do just that, which is to start to bring down those prices. But our growers need the supports, and we need it now. And we can't see a bipartisan bill come to the floor because they don't have the votes for it. We need, or excuse me, a partisan bill. We need a bipartisan bill and one that will support the growers in my state, in Oregon, as well as across the country. But that's what will help stabilize food prices. So I'm very excited to continue working on this. You can reach out to Andrea Salinas for Oregon.com for more information. And thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Candidate Salinas, for our interview today and for sharing so many of your thoughts there. We also thank Capital Community Media for their extensive technology and producer skills used to create this program. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and of Marion and Polk counties for the design and preparation of the program. And thanks to you, the public, for watching in order to become an informed voter. For more local, state, and national voter information on candidates and ballot measures, please visit vote411.org after September 30th when candidate data is posted. You have until October 15th to register to vote or to make changes to your registration. Ballots go out October 16th and will be accepted and counted if postmarked before or on November 5th. Elections matter. Please remember to vote because your vote counts.